To start off the year, we're going to start with a wee email.
From who?
From Lawrence.
Lawrence!
Yay!
Hi, you Sci Guys.
Hi!
Hi.
Hi. As you might be able
Sorry,
to...
you don't say hi when you're the one reading.
I really hate you. I'm a big fan of your podcast, and so is my old big history teacher.
Descriptions.
What a weird description of a teacher.
Big history is a subject in which the history of the entire universe is covered, from the Big Bang and nuclear fusion of stars to how agricultural revolution started and why some humans have lactose intolerance.
I thought he was just fat shaming his history teacher.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. My old big history teacher.
My
big fat, old, disgusting teacher.
I want to
big
learn
history.
big history. That's amazing.
I want to take
This is
that
big
class.
history.
Okay. Yeah, I want to learn it better.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Like, we're good at the old history. We're just not good at
I want
the
a
past
professional.
2,000 years. Unfortunately, my teacher left our school this school year, but we bonded over your podcast, which I'm very thankful for. That's another teacher that likes this.
That's happened a couple times
Wow.
now.
Yeah, this is the second time. That's great.
If you are a teacher listening to this, please write into us because that is the most brilliant validation we could ever receive.
And scary validation.
It really is.
Other
I
than
love
if
it.
it's like if Bill Nye or Brian Cox wrote in and was like, "We love your podcast. We love your podcast, Luke. It's amazing. It's brilliant."
Is that your scientist impression?
Oh my God, Brian Cox just came into the room. Hello, Sir Brian.
Sci Guys is amazing.
This is simply amazing.
Another fun fact, I listened to the episode about black holes right before my test and aced it.
Wow.
Oh, was the test on black holes?
I assume so.
Must have been.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's a completely unrelated thing.
Fun fact, I did this thing and then a different thing happened. Wow.
I listened to your podcast and then passed my driving test.
Woo!
Great.
I made a chicken korma and then passed my math exam.
Keep being awesome. Greetings. Lawrence from the Netherlands.
Oh, thanks,
Oh.
Lawrence.
Thank you.
Wonderful email.
Thank you.
Start the show, Corey.
Shall we start the show?
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Sci Guys, the show where we talk about the crazy, weird, and wonderful stories from the science world. I'm Corey, and as always, I'm joined by my co-hosts, Jamp and Luke Cutforth.
Greetings.
Hello.
Earthling. Sorry.
Where are you from?
I tried to do something
Earth
different.
also.
Didn't work.
This week, as it's a time of new beginnings, we'll be talking about the oldest beginning of them all.
Ah,
What is
you
the
mean my
oldest-
birth?
Stop. We just did a highlights episode and there was a whole segment on you talking about Luke Universe.
I'm so glad that's just gone out and people have just been reminded on it. Otherwise, I look like a massive egotist.
I was listening to every episode and I didn't realize how often you brought it up.
Yes.
I think you bring it up sometimes too.
Oh, it's great. I love it. Luke thinks he's the beginning of the universe, by
I
the way.
don't think I'm the beginning of the universe.
He's the beginning of
I
Luke's
said
universe,
that
which is the only
from
universe
my
that matters.
perspective, which also includes Corey and James' perspective since they are younger than me, nothing happened before my birth from my perspective.
So what if one of us were older than you?
Well, you're not. And also,
what
I would
if?
just think he spontaneously came into being in 1994,
Okay.
along
Doesn't
with
make
the
it-
entire observable universe.
Well, you're going to hate this episode because much like the universe, I thought we should start this year off with a bang. We've all heard of the Big Bang Theory before.
To be fair, I was started with
It's
a
a good
bang,
show.
yes.
It's not a good show.
Luke. Luke.
So are you?
Yeah, yours was probably more of a fizzle.
Don't. Anyway.
What is the Big Bang Theory?
It is that at a point in time,
It is that. That's right, Luke.
13.7 billion years ago, roughly, something along those
How
lines.
do you know that off the top of your head?
I don't know.
I have 13.8, but 13.7.
That's quite close.
13.8 billion years ago, the singularity, which is an infinitely dense point of matter, energy, all things, spontaneously came into existence and exploded, creating all of the energy in the universe and began expanding, and now we're here. Roughly.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
So it
I
wasn't
hate
an
thinking about
explosion.
Sure.
technically.
Expansion.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
rapid expansion.
But explosion sounds better
It does sound better.
than expansion.
It does sound better, but it's not exactly an explosion like you think of it. It's not a fiery.
Oh, there's no fire in space, is there?
This won't surprise you, but I don't think the Big Bang Theory is correct.
Yeah, that's why I've got
Yeah.
other theories, and also I've got a good section just for you to talk about what you think.
Great.
I mean, it is incredibly unlikely that we've cracked the beginning of the
Well,
universe.
It's not so much that I think it's not correct in that, like, I don't think expansion happened and the universe is expanding and we can observe that and we can rewind it in time. We have no evidence of the Big Bang. We just have what's happening rewinded through simulated time. What I mean by I don't think everything started 13 billion years ago and before that there was nothing forever and that was it. There was another universe, or our expansion, the way that we see the expansion being, was just like back in time 13 billion years ago. That was still just a universe, just on what we would call really tiny scale. And once it's expanded 13 billion years, you can't see what it originally used to be. Because scale doesn't exist when nothing else exists. So an infinitely small point is also an infinitely big point and everything in between.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scale is relative.
This is something that I was thinking about recently. The fact that we have the word nothing means that we don't have a concept of nothingness, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to name it.
Yes.
Anything that you can put a name to or conceptualize,
Yeah.
it's not nothing. So the nothing is the thing that you can't wrap your brain around at all.
I've been thinking about this recently, actually.
Yeah.
And the first time I thought about it, I was about 10, and I was like, I can't actually imagine nothing. And then I had a meltdown.
He's been having it ever since.
In
Still
spirituality, imagining nothing, if you imagine, like, say, for example, empty space, imagining that is how you bypass your brain, because your brain cannot conceptualize of nothing because it can only think about things. And so if you do try and think about nothing, you go perfectly into what might actually be there, which is nothing. Probably.
Fair enough. That's pretty interesting.
There's a really good story in Zen Buddhism that says there's a bunch of monks around, and there's a like absolute layman, like normal person and they have this competition. And in Buddhism, if you win an argument, if you win a kind of like battle of ideas, everyone in the room has to become your disciple. And so they have this contest to see who can describe space, and all these monks say things. It is the body of God. It is the infinite. Is it whatever? And then this absolutely normal person who isn't a monk, just it's his turn, and he says nothing, and he wins, and all the monks have to become his disciple.
Why was he there?
That's a
What
good
was
story.
he doing there?
Yeah, what was the normal person
He
doing
wandered
there?
in on the monk's little debate battle.
what's
He's
in
like,
it?
I'll just say nothing, and I'll hope that they ignore me,
gonna
and
throw
then
him a
I'll be able
curveball.
to leave.
Maybe he just
And he
didn't
walks
know
out
what
the
to
door, and
say.
12 of them follow him as little disciples.
Yeah.
Good. That is a really interesting story. Back to the Big Bang.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the single massive event that started the universe. Before the Big Bang happened, there wasn't nothing. There wasn't everything. We can't comprehend what there was because it was just
Yeah, that's
before
what I was thinking of at 10. I was like, what came before?
Yeah, it's just before the
Then I
Big Bang.
Probably cried.
Could be anything. We don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't, in this case, it doesn't really matter for this episode's purpose, because what we're going to be talking about is what happened following the Big Bang and also during the Big Bang.
What happened after?
This.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This.
this.
All
Us.
this. And Luke. Luke happened after the Big
You
Bang.
guys are scaring me.
Yeah, so we don't have any eyewitnesses of the Big Bang, obviously. It was a little bit of a while ago. But we're pretty confident that it happened. Mostly because we've noticed a few things over the years. So the name, the Big Bang, was first made in 1949 by Fred Hoyle. But actually, we were thinking about it a little bit before that. So Einstein published his general theory of relativity in 1916. And that was at that point, everyone thought the universe was static and wasn't growing or changing.
Looks pretty static.
Yeah, Luke is pretty static.
Thanks, guys.
So Einstein had his general theory of relativity, but it didn't really change people's minds. But in the 1920s, astronomers, namely Hubble, don't know his first name,
yes.
Mr. Hubble.
He had a telescope.
Edwin, isn't it?
Edwin, that's it, yeah. I can't remember if it was Edwin or Edward. Either way,
Edwin.
both nerd names.
Edwin's a nice name.
He has a telescope named after him. No one that isn't a
Yeah,
nerd
yeah,
has
a
a
telescope.
telescope named after them.
Does anybody else have a telescope named after them?
Yeah, the new one.
Galileo.
Oh, yeah.
Is that Galileo the new one?
No, because Galileo was a cool name. It's a boring name for the new one.
Oh.
It's like Smith or something.
The Smith telescope.
Anyway,
After Will
Hubble observed that distant galaxies were rapidly receding from Earth and from each other, which,
Loners.
just want to be
Get some
alone.
friends.
None of them
Need some
like each
alone
other.
time. They had friends. They don't like them. They're cutting off all the toxic people because it's
The
1920.
universe was a white girl.
That kind of solidified the idea of an ever-expanding universe. And so people started to kind of, come around to the idea that the universe started small and then got really big. And it keeps on getting bigger and bigger
Bigger by the
and
day.
bigger. But how did we know that was happening? And how did we know that the Big Bang happened?
Redshift. Is that right?
Is that what you call it when you take control of the podcast?
It's time for a ginger takeover. Is it redshift? Is that why?
Yeah, it's background radiation. Really?
Oh, so not redshift then.
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Redshifting had something to do with it, though, didn't it?
Well, redshifting is like how you measure that the planets are moving away from
Away
you.
from you.
And if you look at them and they move away over time, then you run time backwards in your head. Eventually, everyone's next to each other.
On
Okay,
top
so
of each other.
Luke is right. That's how we knew that the galaxies and the planets are all moving away from each other and from us. But how we knew about the Big Bang happening is through background radiation. Do you know do you know what background radiation? I feel like you don't know what background radiation
Radiation
is.
left over from the Big Bang.
You're not wrong.
I think personally that what background radiation is a different thing, but I'll tell you that in a bit.
Do you think anything
Why
is
don't we-
what it is?
Why don't you tell us what you think background radiation is?
Okay, so here's a concept. Imagine from our perspective, we are the center of the universe. The Earth is the center of the universe, which means that all the planets around us create a mass, and we are the acting center of that mass, right? Now that means that at some point, our universal mass of the universe that we can observe will have a event horizon, like a black hole, because all of the mass of all of our observable universe will act as though it is concentrated at the Earth, which is in gravity. When you have like where everything is considered to exist is at this point. And so we will have an event horizon, and everything that falls into our event horizon, the image of that will be projected onto a giant 2-dimensional sphere, 3-dimensional sphere, which we would see as background radiation. But it's not actually that. The mass is falling in, but the data is being projected onto our event horizon. Don't know if that's a theory, but that just came into my head right now. Thought I'd share it. What do you think of that?
What?
So, when you have a black hole, right?
I feel like there was a leap that I missed.
So, a black hole is an infinitely small point of mass in the center
Yeah.
of... That's
Yeah.
not necessarily true.
Yeah.
We just know that mass acts... Like, the mass of the Earth isn't all at the center of the Earth, but it
Yeah.
acts as though it's at the center
Yeah.
of the Earth. Now, when you have a black hole, there is a thing called an event horizon, where if things fall into it, according to Stephen Hawking, the actual mass falls in, but the energy exists on this thing called the event horizon, which is a sphere around the black hole,
right.
which creates an image of itself on that layer, like that event horizon.
Effect.
So if you were at the center of the black
That's like
hole...
when you look at black hole simulations, you get that ring around.
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
things
If
fall
you
in.
were at the center of the black hole looking out, you would see an event horizon where everything that falls into your black hole universe seems to be projected on this sphere outside the black hole. And that could be what we're seeing as background radiation.
Well, we don't know that, though, because we don't know what it's like at the center of a black
No,
hole.
no,
If
but-
you want to know more about black holes,
that's my
go and
theory.
visit our black hole episode, which we did.
All I mean is that if you could exist without getting crushed at the center of the black hole, and you could look out, and you could exist at the center of the black hole if you were as dense as the center of the black hole.
I'm just saying that we don't know.
Okay.
So I can't say yes or no to that because we just don't know.
Well, that's
So
what
you're
I
saying
think.
the entirety of the universe
Fair enough.
is in the center of a black hole?
The entirety
Or
of the
is-
universe
I'm saying that
is
the entirety of the universe is the acting center of mass, which is our Earth for our perspective. If you
Right.
move to a different perspective, you get a different event horizon. And what we call our universe could just be what things outside of what we call our universe looking in call a black hole.
Right.
And if things fall into our universe from outside our universe, they think it's gone forever, but actually it's just gone into our event
Our
horizon.
event horizon.
And if they go in,
Probably worse off coming here, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not very good here
Got
right now,
climate
is it?
change here.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's a different idea. Anyway, tell us what they think it is. That's what I think it is. Hopefully one day someone proves
No, I
that
get
and
it,
then
I
they go
get
back
it.
and listen to this and I get a Nobel Prize.
Stop trying to get a Nobel Prize.
Not if I cut it out.
I want to know if that's a theory because that just popped into my head from nowhere.
I don't know if it is a theory because I don't think that's exactly how we picture black holes as working.
Well,
I,
we'll see.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I
I
don't
think
want
it'll
to
be
say
true
you're
by the
wrong.
end of my life. I'll wager you
Do you reckon?
£500.
I don't plan on being
That'll be
alive
worth
by the end of your
nothing.
life.
I'll wager that will be true in 70 years.
I'm not going to be alive in 70
I wager
years.
that will be true in 50 years. £500.
If you were listening to our dreams episode, you'll know I'm dying in like 38
Yeah, you only
years.
got 30 years left.
Oh God. 36, I think. Anyway, moving on past my death. Background radiation. Effectively, because we don't have any instruments that allow us to see way, way back in time. We can see kind of back in time because obviously light takes a long time to travel to us. So something
Yeah.
from really far away is when light gets to us, it's from a really
It's from a
long
long time ago.
Yeah, but we can't see as far back as the Big Bang.
Oh, can we not?
No, we
I
can't.
thought we could.
But we can see the echo of the Big
Oh,
Bang.
maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it is what you're thinking of. Basically, this is cosmic microwave background. So, effectively, in the early stages of the universe, it was about 100 millionth of the size it is right now. And it was very, very hot, 273 million degrees above absolute zero.
Blimey.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's very high, very hot. Very hot.
Let's get the sunblock out.
Well, there wouldn't be any suns back then, so
No.
probably wouldn't need it.
Oh, don't need it then.
Yeah, don't need it.
No.
Yeah. So any atoms that were there were quickly broken apart. And the radiation from that, like the photons coming out of that, were scattered off. And so they were kind of wandering around in the early universe. Kind of like how light is in a fog. So when you've got fog and you're trying to shine light into it, it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
You know, but with radiation. About 380,000 years after the Big Bang, the universe was a little cooler. Hydrogen atoms formed, and the photons weren't really affected by hitting hydrogen, so they were just scattering themselves about, having a grand old time. And effectively, they're still kicking about, just with very low energy. We can't see them, and we can't feel them. They're easiest to find as microwaves, just a fraction above the energy of about absolute zero.
Oh, so it's very slight.
Very slight, just a little waver. But we can measure them. In fact, we first measured them by accident. So they were
Why
discovered
is everything by accident?
because we're not good at anything.
We're only good accident.
We're only good at making mistakes. That's the one thing we can do. We discovered it by accident. Well, we didn't. Scientists did.
I did.
You didn't do everything, Luke.
I'm everyone.
Well, if
This was in 1965,
The whole
before
one
the
coin.
universe
so then it
started.
manifested when he was born.
well, that means that by my birth manifested the past, in which case, then I did do it.
I know you're joking, but I, also know that you're kind of
I
not.
like the idea that from now on, everything that happens in Sci Guys, I claim responsibility for.
Well,
it.
we
Like,
need to
I did
measure
that.
time by, what? BL and AL.
Before after it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Finally,
Well, not after Luke, more during Luke.
during Luke.
I don't want to do
Yeah.
the calculations of.
Well,
BL and
okay, AL in the year
Well,
of our
AL is
Luke.
your age. Little Lord Luke.
So,
Cut to.
29 years AL. 29 years BL.
Hang on, 29 years AL is in 4 years from now.
Yeah, 29
Yeah.
years AL. Luke passes.
Oh, I'm dying in 4 years?
A test.
No, he ascends.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah.
ascend. I can ascend, that's fine.
Yeah.
No, so 29 years BL. Two researchers with Bell Telephone Laboratories, Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson, were creating a radio receiver, and they were quite puzzled by some noises that it was picking up. They had a look, and they thought it was due to pigeons and their dung. But even after they cleaned up the mess and killed all of the pigeons, they still had that little anomaly.
Well,
Hang on.
pigeons died for nothing.
Killed all the pigeons.
Yeah.
That's
And how
rude.
How we get rid of this problem?
Hang on, they didn't even know they were about to
was
discover the
gonna
background
say.
microwave radiation of the
Yeah.
universe. They thought they had a problem with their detector, so they went, let's check if we have a problem with our direct detector by killing some pigeons.
Okay, here's what happened. They were building a receiver or some kind of antenna, and they were getting weird readings on it. And they had a look. They thought it was because there was pigeon dung on it. They thought, pigeon's fault. Clean up the dung, kill the pigeons, no more dung.
Or just like, okay, whatever.
And just lock
could have tried other
lock
things
the
before we
antenna away
Move
somewhere.
your receiver.
Killing pigeons.
Yeah. Or, make the pigeon stay awake. But a scarecrow.
So rude.
Yeah. Anyway, I
hope that pigeon osmosis happens to them and more pigeons come.
that's-
There's a low density of pigeons over here. Therefore,
Karma.
soon pigeons will be equally distributed across the entire. Look, as soon as they
vacuum of pigeons.
as soon as they figure out space travel, that's it. They're like,
No.
they're everywhere. They're flying already, man. They're flying already. Yeah. So, Penzias and Wilson had just discovered background radiation.
Good for them.
Didn't realize that's what they'd done, but they did it. And then, at the same time, an American cosmologist, Ralph Afer, he had predicted it in 1948, and he was doing work with Robert Herman and George Gamow, and they were looking for this background radiation. And then they heard that the other two had discovered it. They were like, oh man,
Oh.
they did that. Maybe we should write a paper about it so that we get credit too. And so they did that. And so that all of the people wrote the papers at the same time. They wrote two separate papers. One of them focusing more on the discovery and the other one's focusing more on what it actually means. And they both won Nobel Prizes.
Oh, good for them.
Yeah.
Both
nice.
won one Nobel Prize or
Well-
won two separately?
So Penzias and Wilson... Oh, hold on. No, they didn't all receive it. Just the ones that discovered it received the Nobel Prize, not the guy who predicted it
And
or
they only won one.
described it. Yeah, you can share a Nobel Prize.
Sure.
That's no
You just
fun.
cut it down the middle.
Yeah. Great.
I'm picturing an Oscar here. I don't know what the Nobel Prize. It's a medal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
you can cut them.
Let's go with that.
Yeah.
I'd always
Cut it
picture,
like a pizza.
I'd always picture them as Oscars.
I do just picture it as an Oscar, and I don't know
Yeah.
why. It's the peak. It's the peak of gifts.
Yeah.
What are they called? Awards. It's the peak of awards.
It's gold
an
and
Oscar is.
shiny and it looks good.
Just like Luke.
I would say the
Yeah.
Nobel Peace Prize is the peak of awards.
Nobel
not the
Peace
Oscar.
Prize.
Not an Oscar.
The Oscars are more
Yeah,
important.
but no, the Oscars will look good.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold an
You
Oscar.
don't get £1 million
I
for
don't want a
winning an
shitty
Oscar.
medal. I
Well,
want
yeah, because you're already a
gold
millionaire if you win an
statue.
Oscar.
Not if you win the VFX Oscar, you know. Or the foreign language film Oscar.
There's a foreign language. I'm joking. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, they're less likely to be millionaires because they're not part of Hollywood.
Yeah.
They might be millionaires, though. Who knows?
Yeah, because otherwise Hollywood wouldn't look at their films.
Yeah, true.
True.
Subtitles? No, thank you.
Oh, I loved there was at the Golden Globes, the guy who won the foreign language film Oscar said the 1-inch barrier of you guys getting
Yeah.
over the subtitles will open you up to a world of great films.
I think it was
Yeah.
the director of Snowpiercer,
Yeah.
I can't remember his name, Bong Joon-ho or something. Yeah, so Penzias and Wilson won the Nobel Prize in 1978 in physics, obviously, because
Where's physics?
I had this image in my head of me diving across the table and just just beating
You're always like 1 millimeter.
thin ice.
We're like one plank length away from the universe in which Corey beats me to a pulp.
Sometimes I see other universes
Yeah,
where I
yeah.
do things,
Sure.
and I just
I'd like to not live in that universe.
oh, I want to live in that
Go on.
universe.
Go on. Go for it. I don't mind.
That
You do what you
universe
want.
would feel
No,
good.
I like you, Luke. I don't want to
Thanks,
smash your
Corey.
head in.
Wow, what
Not
a
all,
compliment.
not all the time. Just occasionally.
Shall we talk about the timeline of the Big Bang?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, you guys up for that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you guys still believe in time? Cool.
Right. Can you jump over the desk now?
Now, this time the candle was involved. What were you saying?
I
Gonna
said
get
you
a
believe in lines as well. You guys believe in time and dimensions. That's mad.
That's cute. Oh, you little apes are so cute. With your time and your lines.
Timeline of the Big Bang.
Timeline of the Big Bang.
Timeline of the Big
Step
Bang.
1, Big Bang.
Step 2.
Expansion.
That's it. Everything,
Forever.
everything else. Step 3. Results.
We don't know yet. Maybe contraction. Maybe nothing. Maybe expansion forever.
Who knows? So, the timeline of the Big Bang,
Yeah.
it originally started as a singularity, as you said, which is effectively just a hot, dense everything.
Yeah.
It's very small.
Where did that
nothing.
come from?
I don't know.
No.
God
No.
farted it out
It's
and
a
then
big flaw.
Not got all the answers,
Big
have you?
flaw of the theory, isn't it?
Neil
Yeah.
Armstrong's poop. It just jetted off into another dimension, fell
Hey.
into a black hole, and oh my God, imagine that's what happened.
What?
Neil Armstrong, right?
Went into a black hole.
No, he
And
set off
caused the
his
Big Bang.
he sent it off into the black hole, and it caused the Big Bang after it came through the black hole.
He
And that's how the
farted.
universe started.
Mm,
Yeah, that's my
Nice.
theory.
nice.
Wait,
Yeah.
our Neil Armstrong or another Neil
No,
Armstrong?
our Neil Armstrong. Yeah,
Oh,
because
okay.
the black hole it's outside of time,
Ah,
and then
yeah.
everything. Yeah.
It's a loop, though.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because Neil Armstrong would have had to exist.
Oh, but
to-
retrocausality is fine as long as it's a closed loop.
Yeah.
As long
Oh,
as,
okay.
as,
Harry
long as
Potter-
Neil Armstrong's poo causes the Big Bang, and then after the Big Bang happens, Neil Armstrong happens again and poos again in space and deploys it into a black hole again and causes the Big Bang again. That's fine. It can
Harry
just keep
Potter
going
rules.
around
That's
forever.
fine, but then where does it start?
It's Harry Potter
It's
rules. It
always
doesn't start
been.
It doesn't start anywhere.
That's the point that's so funny with the Big Bang is like we think the universe is 13.7 billion years old,
Yeah.
but it probably just happened loads of times forever. It's probably
Yeah.
just always happening. Or it exists as a permanent like fifth dimensional, sixth dimensional object that is
Yeah.
always the same and we are moving through it one plank frame at a time.
Yeah.
And when you look back in the directions you can look in, i.e. like time, then you see, oh, it started with the Big Bang. But it's actually like, it's just a solid object that just exists all the time. And every possibility exists as dimensions on that object. And there is no start, there is no end. It just exists.
And also, time is meaningless without consciousness.
We are time.
We make it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Everything's made up. Your brain is smart, but also
I've
dumb.
watched those dimension videos
Yeah.
on YouTube. They were quite
That's
interesting.
fairly likely.
Yeah.
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 Kurzgesagt is another really good one for all this kind of stuff.
And at another level, eventually, the whole object is just a point. And
Yeah.
it doesn't exist at all. And it is everything.
Yeah.
And that's everything. There you go.
If it's everything, it must be nothing too.
Yeah, it's also nothing. There you go. Wow. So
Amazing.
you want a definition of nothing?
Everything.
Everything. Well, we can't picture everything.
Wow.
Picture infinity.
Yeah, you just picture nothing, I think.
The thing is, I can't describe what I picture when I picture infinity. It's just,
Very, yeah.
you know?
Goes off into the
Have you
can't see it anymore.
considered being a science educator, Corey? With that level of description on an audio podcast, moving your two hands away from each other and then looking at us for praise? Good work.
That's infinity.
I'll be Brian Cox one day. Just you wait.
I think you'd like to give a Reef lecture.
going to sell out the O2.
Hello, my TED Talk today.
What is infinity?
I'll be the new Stephen
Thanks for
Hawking.
coming to my TED Talk.
Oh, no, he wouldn't have been able to. Never mind.
Could be a TED type.
Not okay. Not okay. Stop.
So the singularity was hot and dense, much like me. Wait. Yeah, so the singularity, it's this kind of, we don't really have a good description of it because we can't comprehend it. And also, we just kind of call it the Big Bang as well. The singularity is another name for the Big Bang because we can't picture what came before the Big Bang, so we just call the singularity that point of everything being all together. And also the point just after the Big Bang when everything is still mostly all together, but not as all together as it was before. Is it
Yeah.
making sense? Is it making sense?
Yeah, I'm following.
You following? Good.
But if space and scale are relative, then surely before the Big Bang there was an infinite amount more. If when we consider it an infinitely small point, it can get infinitely smaller as well. So it's probably just expanding forever. And if you go back in time enough, it's contracting forever. Like one of those lines that like tends towards zero, but never quite meets zero.
So we'll get that, asymptotes. Basically, because we don't have a theory that can unify general relativity and quantum mechanics, we can't describe this in any meaningful way because we just don't know. Basically, we've got two jigsaw. We've got a jigsaw puzzle. We've got two halves of it, but we can't find out how to fit them together. There's a middle strip just missing that we need to fix them together.
Speaking of quantum mechanics, have you ever had an experience where you're a really tiny little thing in a giant meat body?
Oh my God, this happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
So like
I become very aware that I'm just in my head.
Yeah, the experience of that suggested to me that the actual thing that I am is like, I'm like a quantum thing.
Yeah.
And I'm in a thing that exists in the large scale physical world, but I'm a tiny little quantum thing.
Where do you feel yourself?
Excuse me.
Where do you feel your consciousness in your body?
Like just between my eyes, a little bit up.
Ooh,
really?
third eye.
Yeah.
Interesting. I feel them. I feel it like a kind of line, like a visor, in line with my temples, behind my eyes.
So the same place.
Yeah,
well,
mine's
you say up here. I'm kind of like, I feel like a kind of strip behind my eyes.
Oh,
yeah, but
that's really specific.
Oh, a strip.
Yeah. So I feel like there's a window.
But you can't possibly be like a two-dimensional thing, can you? Like it'd be weird if you had dimensions. Like you must be a point of consciousness because you can't exist. You can't exist in your left eye only, and your point of consciousness centered in your left eye. So you only are in the middle.
It's more like a kind of a single point that is. Well, it's difficult. It feels bigger than a single point.
What I mean is like, so what you're describing is like, imagine you were like front row of a cinema, right? You are the little thing in the audience, and what you're describing is the cinema screen.
Well, no. I feel like, because inside my head, I can't conceptualize how big that is, but I know that it's like in line with my temples, but it doesn't feel like it's in the center.
Oh. Wow, maybe you need to go.
Mine does feel centered.
Get some acupuncture or something. Sort that out. I don't feel centered.
Mine just feels like around here. It's not like a point.
Yeah,
but it is centered in my
your head.
But it's just kind of like around this area.
Cool.
Interesting. Good. Message us to tell us where you think you are. Canada?
Send
America?
us an email. Where's your consciousness?
Probably gone after listening to this entire episode.
Asleep.
So yeah, time and laws don't make sense. We can't understand anything. That's a singularity.
That should have just been episode 1, and then we just never do the podcast ever again.
That was it. So that's a singularity. And the Big Bang kind of just happened, and everything just started moving outwards,
Right.
expanding.
I definitely accept that just happened.
Yeah, it just happened.
Me. Yes, okay,
Yeah,
I definitely
definitely
accept that just happened.
So there could have been like quantum fluctuations or some odd aberration, but we don't know what really happened. We just know that things started happening all of a sudden.
I wonder how long it is before America claims like that they started the universe.
Stop.
Like they're at their atom
Yes.
collider, and
We
they
checked the singularity.
Well, it has a little American flag on it.
Trump.
When you look close enough under a strong
Someone's
microscope,
engraved
you can
USA
actually see
on the
Neil
side.
Armstrong on the singularity poking down little flag.
That's what that footage really was.
Basically, the first second after everything started, the universe was moving faster than the speed of light. It was growing faster than the speed of light, which doesn't break Einstein's laws because that's about stuff moving faster than the speed of light. If the universe moves faster than the speed of light, it's okay.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's fine.
Space can expand faster than the speed of light because space has no mass.
Yes.
Universe has the speed of light.
Or maybe.
pass.
Basically, the universe can move at whatever speed it wants because it's the universe and it makes the rules.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it doesn't exist.
Well, who knows?
It's nothing.
It doesn't expand into anything, by the way. It just expands.
Yeah,
And if you're sitting there confused, it's because your silly monkey brain, which is developed to find fruit and nuts and also not die,
Yeah.
doesn't need to know about nothingness.
Yeah, or that the theory is not correct. Like
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's the other. Like they don't tell them they're stupid. Like it's also possible that if you don't understand it or it doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's definitely true. It might
No,
also be wrong.
I'm just saying like, it could be wrong. I'm just saying that the concept of the universe expanding it into nothing,
Yeah,
you won't be able to understand it because that's not what your brain is
sure.
made for.
But also
Regardless of whether it's true or not, your brain just can't get around that.
yeah. All I mean is that science doesn't know what that nothing is either.
Oh yeah.
So like,
Okay.
it's not that they know. It's they're as out without a clue as everybody else.
Oh no,
in that they don't know.
when I say you, I mean
Yeah.
everyone.
No, I know.
No one knows.
Yeah.
Because we can't.
Have they considered that actually the universe stayed the same size and all the stuff got smaller?
I was thinking this actually earlier in the episode.
I don't think they have considered that.
Because they wouldn't know the difference.
I mean, to be fair, realistically, it doesn't really make a difference.
no, but it's important. It's
I mean-
important to think about size and things like that in that way. In that that would be the same thing you'd observe. Like it would be the same observation if we got smaller and the universe stayed the same size.
But also, it would no, because things are moving farther apart as well. So I mean, look, to be honest, it doesn't. I don't think it makes a difference in that.
It doesn't make a difference in that you observe the same things and you create the same calculations. But I just mean that when you say, not you, when science says the universe is expanding, as though that is true, there are other ways of viewing the same data that create different interpretations, and everything's getting smaller and further away from each other, and the size between things, because the things are getting smaller, they can also move further away from each other relativistically, but they're also shrinking, is the same data set.
Yeah. So I guess my point would be is if I grew taller than you, did you get shorter than me, or did I get taller than you?
Well, the world stayed the same size relative, so we would be able to tell which one. But if you and I were in a vacuum, and
No, that's what I'm saying. It just in the case of you and me.
Yeah.
If I grew taller, did I grow taller than you, or did you get shorter than me?
well, relativistically, both happened, or either.
Yeah.
And
Functionally,
I know that. What I mean is that much more important, I think, than describing what the theory says from the observational data is explaining that there are different conclusions to come to from the same observational data. And the one that you're given is not necessarily truth, it is relatively true, and there are other interpretations.
Absolutely, fair enough.
And no one teaches that.
To be honest, with this, this is too complex for any of the three of us to realistically,
100%.
to realistically look into and fully understand. I'm sure there are reasons for them saying that it's expanding. I doubt that.
But either are possible.
I'm sure there's some reason, whether it's a good reason or not. I'm sure there's some reason. And if there's not, then that's fine. But ultimately, I think whether it's expanding or whether things are shrinking is because things shrinking kind of changes how we view the laws of our universe. But it also doesn't, because those laws stay consistent despite the fact that we're shrinking. It's kind of just a semantic difference rather than a...
I think it's a difference between intelligence, i.e. knowing what other people have said and reading things, and wisdom, as in understanding how to interpret data in different ways. The latter is, I think, a much more important skill than remembering a bunch of stuff other scientists have come up with.
Yeah.
Which is why you often find that the best scientists are the ones that think slightly outside the box, because they're
Always
the
a
ones
bit
that are
kooky.
pioneers.
Those are, I think, the only true scientists. The majority, I think, of the scientific field is based on creating observation and prediction models of what happens when you do a thing, rather than what's actually necessarily happening. Like what's actually happening, rather than a really good story of what's happening. Like we get the orbitals of electrons inside of an atom. It's a good story, it helps calculation, and that's why I'm putting the fault of this not on schools, because schools teach what they're taught to teach, because they're not allowed to teach, other than like a private school. Schools aren't allowed to teach a lot of stuff outside the curriculum because they're told what to teach, and if they don't, they get fired. And so what I mean by it's an issue of science is that the whole academic practice of science, 90% of it, isn't trying to find out necessarily what's true. It's trying to find convenient stories to describe what appears to be happening that aren't necessarily true themselves. They are just good stories that match the data. And you just pick one of the stories, like the universe is expanding or the universe is staying the same size and everything's shrinking, rather than actually experiencing things as they actually happen or admitting that some things are inherently unknowable, that sort of thing.
Be a skeptic.
Yeah, be a skeptic.
Yeah.
So, after the expansion, well, I say after the expansion, it's still happening, but there was the quark era, in which pairs of quarks were created from gluons, and matter and energy were basically the same thing because it was so hot. So they would
Right.
come into existence and then
They
just
were all
turn back into
shooting
energy
around
again.
everywhere, Yeah.
So they would basically, energy was spontaneously kind of shifting into matter, then being like, I don't want to be matter anymore.
Oh,
I'm back into energy.
It's too hot here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too hot. Back into energy.
I'll
And that
come
was
back
just
later.
happening constantly. So you couldn't really say that matter existed because it wasn't existing for long enough. To
So is
really-
it like
Yeah.
decaying?
It's kind of... I don't even know if decaying is the right word. It's like,
Is there
Do you know
a
how- okay, do
theory
you know
as
how-
to why it couldn't stay in?
because it was so hot.
That's why. Okay.
Yeah. So think about if you're stirring something up and it's got a lot of bubbles, you're creating bubbles as you're stirring, but you're also destroying all the bubbles. So there's no one
Right.
singular bubble that is lasting,
Sure.
but there are
Right,
just
yeah.
bubbles coming.
Bubbles remain the presence of bubbles remains constant.
Yes,
Cool.
exactly. But sometimes they turn back
Yeah.
into water.
They do that.
That's what bubbles do. So the universe was about 1 billion kilometers across. At that point, it was then cool enough for matter and energy to be separate instead of quarks just being born and converted back into energy.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, when it was that big, which is kind of big,
Yeah.
you know, can you picture 1 billion kilometers?
No, absolutely not.
No.
No, nor can I. If you told me that the universe was 1 billion kilometers wide, I'd be like, yeah, okay, that's fine.
That's enough.
That's
Yeah.
enough. Sure.
Yeah.
That's a long way.
If you told me that the Earth was a
We're never
billion
getting
kilometers wide, I'd be like, okay, fine. I don't know how big that is. I don't know how big anything is.
You could say the Earth was 1 billion kilometers. It would just change the value of a kilometer
Yeah.
to
Like,
be 1 billionth
True.
of the Earth.
the Earth is one Earth.
Yeah.
So at this point, the universe has been around for about 1 second. At this point right now.
Just like it has now. When
That's-
everything
that's what I'm saying.
spontaneously came into being 1 second ago.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Ah,
So it's now 100 billion kilometers across, which is functionally, to me, no different than 1 billion.
Makes no
make a
difference.
Doesn't
No.
make a difference. Could be the size of a football. I don't care. Don't care. So neutrons start to decay into protons, and then hydrogen is formed, which is great.
Where do neutrons get
Ooh.
the positive charge from? How does that come about?
Didn't look into it.
Okay.
It just happens.
Look, honestly, the thing is, when you try and look into the Big Bang, there are two types of things that you find: the really, really complex stuff, and then the stuff for kids.
Ah.
So I read the complex stuff, and I was just kind of like,
and I am a kid.
yeah. So a bit how I did this was I built it out from the kid stuff, and then I looked at the complex stuff, and I filled in all of the gaps. One of those gaps was not neutrons become protons.
I just wonder whether
Should have
the
thought about
creation of electrons was part of the separation of neutrons becoming in protons. Because if you were to create positive energy, positive charge, then you would create its opposite, negative charge.
That makes sense. I don't know how that would have happened.
Yeah.
But it happened.
Cool.
Yeah,
It just happened.
it just happened. Maybe it was hot. Maybe that's what happened.
Oh,
It's hot in here.
decided to take something
I'm
off.
going to decay from a neutron into a proton.
When
So
I
hot,
take
I'm
my
going to let
jacket
go
off,
of my negativity.
yeah.
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 we're leaving that in 0.
In 0 seconds. Yeah, so
13.8 billion BL. That's where we're leaving that.
If we ever get a Wikipedia page for the podcast Sci Guys, I want it to say Sci Guys was started in the year 24 AL.
Like, what the hell?
And then AL has its own page.
I'm honestly half tempted just to measure all dates in A. Alienate every new listener.
And then it's the listener's homework to figure out what year it actually was.
So, neutrons decay into protons, hydrogen is formed, and it's 10 billion degrees Celsius. So it's toasty. moderately toasty.
You could make some toast in there.
Huh, if you could make toast.
Oh, there was no toast though.
No, it was just
But
hydrogen.
you're forgetting the next stage of the Big Bang Theory, which is that protons decay into toast.
The toast was materializing then instantly. Just got burnt and
Yeah,
There
toast
was
came
toast.
before bread.
And it said, it's too hot here, and became bread again.
So after that happened, there was the opaque era. That was around about 200 seconds or so. I mean, a few minutes in, to be honest.
all these eras.
What does the opaque era mean?
Well, you'll find out
Yes, when I ask the question.
when you listen, then I answer it
I
for
will
you.
listen. Okay.
I think he was going to tell us anyway.
I'm listening.
Are you listening to your microphone?
Just realized, yes, I'm listening to my microphone. Sorry.
Hello.
I'm listening. Corey, you said when I listen, I would get the answer. I'm listening.
So it's about 200 seconds in. Things started to cool and settle, and the universe was like a soup of atoms. It was stable and electrically neutral, and there were no stars. And hydrogen gas blocked photons from moving around. Which means
Because
that
it's so dense
everything's-
with hydrogen.
Yeah, so it's just hydrogen gas, so the photons aren't really able to cut through.
So the universe was just all hydrogen.
Yeah.
It was just
The whole universe was just hydrogen.
It was
Well,
just a
hydrogen and some
fart.
other stuff, yeah.
Wow.
Just a big fart.
That's methane.
Imagine if you did like
Fart hydrogen.
imagine if you did like
hydrogen
the science
fart.
experiment you do in chemistry in like A level, and you took a little flame towards the universe balloon, and then the whole thing just went up.
That was the Big Bang.
Yeah.
That was.
Yeah, so there were no stars yet because it was just kind of bunch of hydrogen gas, and photons couldn't move around. Hence opaque, because you can't see.
Yeah. Oh, clever
Too much
name.
hydrogen. We've all been there.
Man, come on.
Have we?
And now we enter the current era, which is a relative term because it started, a long, long time ago. Over hundreds of thousands of years, hydrogen clumped together to form stars, and those stars came to form galaxies. So in the stars, hydrogen stops being a gas and starts being a plasma, which means that light can pass through it now, and it also makes a lot of light, and also hydrogen decays and then combines itself into other stuff. It makes helium, and then it starts making other elements, and those get thrown out of stars, and then those clump together and make planets. And then we happened.
That's what we live on.
Cool.
Yeah. We live on planets, all of them. So basically, everything came from stars, and the universe is still expanding and technically cooling. So, what is next after now?
The future era.
Yes, but what happens in the future? How will the universe
Oh,
end?
Well, probably most likely, according to the data, it will just continue expanding because there isn't enough mass to turn it into a big crunch.
That's the thing. Yeah, exactly. So there are two prevailing theories on this. There are heat death and the big crunch. What heat death is effectively all energy be uniformly distributed across the entire universe. So all the temperature is exactly the same, which is just a little bit above absolute zero, which is minus 273 degrees Celsius.
Yes.
So just above minus 273 degrees Celsius. Everything will be about that.
I feel like there's just a massive flaw in that theory that the universe will eventually expand and cool and be an infinitely large but very cold uniform place forever, because just inherently that just feels wrong. Like maybe there's something where like if the whole universe becomes so nothing, it just explodes again, because like where did we come from otherwise? Like where did our universe come
So
Yeah.
that is one of the theories. And then I'll just explain the big crunch quickly. So the big crunch is the exact opposite of that. Effectively, the universe grows until there's too much mass in it, and then that mass draws everything in closer, because that's what mass does. Just like in a black hole, it pulls everything in. So there's too much mass in the universe, so it stops expanding and starts contracting till it's a single point again,
and then just big bang again.
and then it big bangs again.
Ah. Well, that'd
We
be nice.
couldn't tell which was going to happen until about 1998. We found out that the universe was speeding up in its expansion because of dark energy, which pulls things apart.
Yeah.
So we think that the universe is heading towards heat death, but we're not actually sure if that's what's going to happen. Or
And
not.
we don't know what dark energy is.
We don't. Dark energy is
Yeah.
just a word for
Sounds cool.
yeah. Dark energy is just what we call the thing that we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Just like dark matter is a thing that we don't know what it is. So let's just call it dark matter and pretend that that's good
Pretend
stuff.
that we've made it a thing.
It's a thing now.
But we
We've
don't know
given it
what
a
it
name.
is.
It's like Sony doing their little reveal of the PlayStation 5. Going, it exists now because we've given it a logo.
They slapped a 5 on top of the PlayStation 4 logo and decided
A
that's it.
backspace on the floor.
Yeah, so Luke, you've been talking about a few other theories of the universe. One of them, the main one that you mentioned, I think, was the oscillating universe.
That's
They
the one where it
mentioned-
goes in and out, is it?
Yeah, so it's the one where basically lots of new universes are started and then ended and then started and ended because of extra dimensional membranes that are kind of oscillating, creating big bangs and universes ending. So that's another theory that kind of goes against the Big Bang. There's also the steady state universe, which is there's a continuous creation of matter throughout the universe, which explains its expansion. But we really don't think that one's right because from like the 1960s onwards, that's just kind of been continuously debunked. But there's one that you'll like, which is eternal inflation, which effectively means that there's constant inflation of the universe, and in that, new universes are constantly being created to create a multiverse. And then there are also some other theories, like we live in a digital simulation, or a flat hologram, which you've spoken about a few times before. But that's really, those are really all the theories that there are. The Big Bang kind of seems like the one we've got the most evidence for, so that's the one that we kind of...
You forgot the theory that a man made the universe, and he's called God.
Thank you for watching. You can find the full references for this episode in the description. Subscribe for new episodes every Sunday, and why not leave us a nice wee comment? Find and contact us at Sci Guys Pod on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, or send us an email at sciguyspod@gmail.com.
That's sciguyspod@gmail.com.
@gmail.com. You can also support us on Patreon. You can find me at Not Corey everywhere.
You can find me at Jamkin everywhere.
You can find me at Luke Coupled everywhere.
Goodbye.
Bye.
There isn't a second camera because it ran out. That's why you can't see us.
It ran out
I ran
because
out of batteries because we talked for so long.
Luke was talking
Bye.
too much.